The Entrepreneur's Library, episode 147.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur's Library, the only book-centric podcast that reviews all the top-selling business books and shares authors' perspective firsthand. This is your resource to finding the next great book that will enable you to grow personally and professionally. Welcome your host, Wade Danielson.
Welcome back to the EL. Today we have Jerry Mills, author of The Exit Strategy Handbook, the best guide for selling your business. Welcome, Jerry, and thank you for joining us on the Entrepreneur's Library.
Well, glad to be here today.
Jerry, before we take a deep dive into your book, will you take just a moment and introduce yourself? Just tell us a little bit about you personally.
Yes. I went to Arizona State University. I spent a good deal of my career with Arthur Andersen and started B2B CFO in 1987 just by myself. Today, there's more than 210 of us in 46 states. I'm also proud to be the father of 4 children and almost 6 grandchildren.
Excellent. So thank you for sharing that. Now let's jump right into your book, The Exit Strategy Handbook, the best guide for selling your business, which was originally made back for purchase back April 2013, so not that old at all. Jerry, we're going to move quickly, but my whole goal here is to cover the top questions that our listener/future reader would like to get answered. And the first one is, what was the inspiration behind writing the Exit Strategy Handbook?
Well, during my career, I've been on the side of helping business owners sell their companies. I've been through quite a few transactions, and one I saw the frustration that business owners go through. It's very stressful, and it's very difficult for them to go through the process of selling their business. Also, I went on Amazon, ordered and read the top 25 most popular books at that time on the subject, and saw that nobody was covering the subject matter. So based on just seeing the frustration of business owners during my career, and I just perceived a need, and obviously there was or is a need for the book. So it was a combination of just mostly wanting to help business owners and seeing that there wasn't anything out there that really addressed these issues that they have.
What would you say makes your book different from others regarding the same or similar topic?
Well, it's the only one of its kind that actually takes a business owner through the process, not from a legal perspective, what attorneys are looking for, but the actual day-to-day process of helping prepare their business for a sale and going through the sale. And it's also a living, breathing book. There's actually software that's associated with the book that allows for updates and changes to the need of each business owner. And so those things in combination make it a very unique book.
Jerry, how did you write this? As far as how do you suggest the reader engage with your book? Is this one that you designed to be read from front to back? Or can they really jump in and jump out based on the information that they need?
Well, it's really based upon the information they need. Each of the chapters are somewhat standalone. There's a couple that are semi-connected together, but it's really based on their need. I think they would just look at the table of content and see where they're at at the stage that they're at the particular time. And then as they go through the process, they go back to chapters they didn't read. So it's mostly a needs-based type of process.
Mm. So Jerry, now that we know a little bit of the background, the purpose behind the book, let's take a deep dive into the content. So will you take us, you got to imagine we have a future reader here, and he's wanting to know, or she wants to know, what they're going to get out of your book. So we take the next 5 to 8 minutes and really take us through what we can expect.
Well, I'll be glad to. In the introduction is something we're very proud of. We think is informative to business owners. We did a proprietary survey of business owners at the Inc. 500 5000 conference and award ceremony in Washington, D.C. in 2013, and we've actually published the results of that study in this book. And it's pretty fascinating reading when business owners want to sell their business, what concerns they have about selling their business. So we're very proud of that survey. It's proprietary and it's unique in and of itself. We talk about in chapter 1 who needs this book. Typically the people who need this book are owners of privately held businesses that want to someday do something with their business, sell it to a third party, sell it to a family member, management, an ESOP, or to whomever. We really don't. This book is not driven by who might eventually buy the book. It's driven by the needs of the business owner or owners. We talk about the future. What are the next 20 years going to look like, basically? Is it going to be a buyer's market or a seller's market? We take into account a lot of the statistics and analysis of baby boomers. There are about, in the United States and Canada, there's about 90 million baby boomers. As we know, they're retiring. And it's very surprising how many of those baby boomers own businesses. And we disclose those statistics. We talk about the potential market effect that might happen just because of that curve of the baby boomers. So we're proud of that information. We think it's very useful for a business owner. There are some businesses where the baby boomer tsunami, as we call it the baby boomer tsunami, may not have an effect on, but many will be affected by this historic event that's never happened in the history of mankind in terms of numbers. We talk about the importance in Chapter 3 about building a team. And this is sort of the kickoff, if you would, of the success of the process. Most business owners really don't know who should be on their team. We call it the success team. They don't know not only who should be on the team, they're not sure exactly what the roles are of each of the members of the team, because each one has different roles. And of course, our process is built where we want the business owner to be in charge of everything at all times. So that's an important chapter. Chapter 4 is an issue that every business owner will, well, not everyone, perhaps 99% of them will have happen to them if they ever engage a mergers and acquisition firm or investment banker to help them, and that is calculating the realistic value of the company. Almost every business owner has sort of a generic feel of what their company is worth, and that generic feel is not always scientific, if you would, and it also doesn't reflect the market in terms of what a potential buyer might consider the company worth. And we actually go through the process of how a business owner can know what a potential buyer might think about the value of their company. And so it's very educational in that case. It's written in a format where everybody can understand it, and they may as well know what the value of their company is. And in fact, in this 5,000 conference survey that we did, 49% of the business owners that we interviewed were concerned about the value of the company. How much is it worth? How can I increase the value? And so forth. So valuation is a key component of this process, the realistic value. The next chapter is typically when a business owner knows the value of his or her company, often they'll say something to the effect, well, how can I grow it? The value, how can I grow the value? And because they earn more money, typically, if they sell the business, and it's worth more. And so what we do is we explain the process, basically, of how to build value in the interim period to sell a business. And we also talk about the role of what the business owner should or should not be doing during this period of time. If they're not careful, this can be a disastrous period of time in terms of building value of their company. If they follow the process documented in this book, it actually should have a very positive result, both in terms of sales and EBITDA. And so we go through that process. Okay, now we know what the value is, the street value, if you would. Now, what is the process to increase that value if they want to do that? We have a chapter 6, one that is near and dear to me. It's called Preparing for the Last Customer, the Buyer. And we go through the philosophy that business owners are incredible, and they have this wonderful talent of knowing what their client wants in terms of what they do on a day-to-day basis in terms of making their products and or services. And we want to use that same logic to prepare for the last customer, which is going to be the buyer. So we talk about what the buyer is looking for, what they want, what are the negative spots, what are the pitfalls, if you would, to avoid, what are some of the things that we can do to cater to that customer or the buyer. An important part of the entire process is knowledge and information about something we call the data room. That's a sore spot in a spot of great frustration to business owners when they're actually going through the process. So we just talk about what that is, whether it's a live data room, whether it's a virtual data room, whether it's a combination of both. We just talk to them the pros and cons of data rooms, because they need that education. They need to know what in the world that animal is. The rest of the book, chapters 8 through 25, are a series of checklists. There's 204 items that we recommend that business owners consider doing on topics such as documenting their product and service lines, documenting their competition, who are their major competitors, and what advantage do they have, if any, key customer information, because the potential buyers are obviously going to want to know some information about the buyer. What are their demographics? Is the company perhaps saturated in what? And they need some more diversification in terms of its customer base. Obviously, vendors are very important. We talk about how we can position the vendors that we use as an asset to a potential buyer. A key component of this is obviously intellectual property and tangible assets. This is just a minefield, a negative minefield for most business owners, because a lot of them own intellectual property that they either haven't documented and or they're not aware of. So, for example, some of the developed software that they use internally. Some own patents, some own trademarks, some own URLs and websites that have high value. Well, there's a right way to document the value of those assets and take control so one can actually have title and transfer it to a buyer. And there's also a lot of pitfalls. And so we talk about the pros and cons of documentation of intellectual property. And that doesn't refer just to companies who are in high tech. Every business has intellectual property that if they use the process correctly that we teach, can actually hopefully turn those into dollars on the transaction. Obviously, technology. Software, hardware. There are a lot of issues. I helped one company I was hired to help, and I asked one very simple question: does your company own does it have licenses for each piece of software that it uses? And the answer was no. The company had more than 100 licenses of software by Microsoft, Oracle, and other large companies. And so we had to go through a process to legally license that software, because you don't want to be in the middle of a transaction and have the buyer find that out, because it's going to devalue, they'll either walk away or it's going to significantly devalue the dollar realized on the transaction. Related parties, minority shareholders, those are really difficult ones. We could have a minority shareholder that only owns 5% of the company, but may get greedy and ask for more money than they deserve, and or a minority shareholder can actually kill the deal. They can, even though they own 5 or 6%, say, of the company, they can actually do things to have the buyer walk away. And there may have been millions of dollars on the table. And so we talk about how to deal with related parties, family members, and so forth, and minority shareholders. Insurance, and of course, there's financial information, both internal and external financials by CPA firms and so forth. We go through some do's and don'ts of contracts and leases. Every company has contracts and leases. They also have agreements, typically with warranties, for example, with their customers. And there are a lot of things that a company, when they look at their balance sheet or their assets or liabilities, that they don't take into consideration, that these contracts, leases, and warranties, obligations are an important part of the sales transaction. Litigation and claims are a huge one. Are there claims pending for the Department of Labor or some customer? Is there potential litigation from an employee for whatever reason? And so we talk about the process of going through and properly documenting litigation, claims. Taxes are a huge one. Yeah, that's in chapter 24. There's so many taxes, and we're not talking just income taxes from a federal and state. We're talking about taxes from the local authority. We're talking about use tax, sales tax, environmental taxes, and it goes on and on. The 25th chapter is on environmental issues. Many business owners are actually shocked when they go through the process of selling their business that there are actually potential liabilities related to environment. And they'll say, well, gee, I'm not selling things or doing things that would impact the environment. And they're typically wrong. And so we go through a process of educating them on what kind of environmental issues they might face in going through a transaction. And the last chapter is just how to track all of this complexity. There's a very simple way that we have developed to keep track of this for a business owner to be in charge of the entire process at all times, to know who's completed a document for the transaction, who has not, who's late, where the documents are. And so that's the chapter 26. That's the last chapter, which is basically tracking this entire process. So in a quick overview, that's sort of A to Z of the book. Is somewhat unique in its format and also in its content.
So Larry, you did a great job of taking us through the book, and you covered a ton of crucial content and context for individuals who are looking to sell that company. And that's why I feel like this next question, we're going to try to break it down even further. And I'm going to ask, if the reader wanted to take away one concept, principle, or action item out of your entire book, everything you just discussed with us, what would you want that to be?
Well, typically, a company that is prepared for a transaction is going to do much better than one who is not prepared. And it usually takes, sometimes it takes years for the preparation of that. It's almost like selling a home. You don't decide to sell the house today and put up a for sale sign tomorrow. Typically with a house, there's some painting and remodeling, and there's just landscaping. There's a lot of things that need to be done. Well, a business is obviously much more complex than that, because usually worth significantly more than a house is worth. And so it's a similar concept that if you're going to sell to a buyer, the buyer typically has a list of other companies that are competitors to your company. Well, what can we do to prepare the company to be better than the competitors? So the preparation is the key component, and that's typically where business owners cut corners, not intentionally, because they're just in the business of making money. But a prepared company that's better than one that is not prepared is probably key concept, if you would.
So, Jerry, will you share a favorite quote of yours from your book, and maybe go take us a little bit in depth of what it means to you?
In chapter 6, the chapter on preparing for your last customer, the buyer, is somewhat in line with what I just said, that a well-prepared business gets more offers, and usually better offers than a less prepared one. A well-prepared business also advances the sale more quickly. In other words, it could be done maybe in a year instead of 2 years. And the chances are that there are very simple steps that a business owner can follow in this quote to improve the value of the business in terms of a transactional sale, and also to decrease the frustration level that a business owner goes through. So that's probably my favorite. In the beginning of chapter 6, it's probably my favorite quote in the book.
And this next question, I'm looking for a book recommendation, not just any book. Really, I'm looking for one, just if you could only recommend one book on the way that it's, influenced your life, it really impacted you, what book would you recommend?
Well, that book would be, is James Allen wrote a book in about 1890 called As a Man Thinketh.
Mm.
And it's not a religious book. It's a book on the law of thought and how our thought process works. And I love that book. It can be read in about 45 minutes, and I read it at least once a year. And it shaped my life in terms of the success that I've had in my career with my company, and the books I've written, and other things. So that book, As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, is to me, it's a must read.
That is a phenomenal book, and I agree with you. I don't do this, but it's one that I should incorporate into reading. I have books that I read. I make sure that I read once a year, and that hasn't been one, but I think that should be. Again, it's such a short read that no reason not to. So
about 45 minutes, yeah, that's all it takes.
yeah, absolutely. So, Jerry, before we depart, can you recommend the best way for our listeners to get more information on you and also your book, The Exit Strategy Handbook?
Yeah, go to our website, b2bcfo.com, B as in boy, the number 2, B as in boy, CFO.com. We have a store there that talks about all the books that we have, and especially this one. So that's a good place to just go to our website and read about the book.
Perfect. Well, Jerry, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your book with us.
Well, thank you. I've enjoyed it, and I hope the audience enjoys the book. They'll learn something. They'll get value out of it, regardless of the stage that they're at in this process.
Thanks for listening in today. If you'd like more information on Jerry or his book, The Exit Strategy Handbook, just check out the show notes at theelpodcast.com.
Looking for your next book idea? Head over to theelpodcast.com, where Wade shares his amazing resource, the top 10 business books recommended by over 500 entrepreneurs, with you for free. That's theelpodcast.com. Till the next time, keep it on the EL.